Hello, Eddy County. It's amazing. I wanted to come on here and hoping that everybody that wanted to watch what I've been saying and check it out and don't check it out. No big deal. I just wanted everybody to understand that policies, ordinances, mandates, referendums, I wish I have a Texas penal code somewhere. I'm gonna go look for it today. I'll find it because I want to read the preemption doctrine. I want to read the preemption doctrine because it's a, it's the supremacy clause. The supremacy clause supersedes this. It supersedes this. It supersedes this big old piece of trash. It supersedes everything. When an official, any official, I don't care who it is. I don't care who it is. It can be a judge. It can be a Supreme Court judge. When an official violates the supremacy clause and thinks that they can hide behind the constitutional avoidance doctrine and order on a rule over the supremacy clause, over constitutional rights, they have committed a crime. Period. They've committed a crime. When any official raises their hands and takes an oath and signs that contract, swearing that they'll protect, defend, preserve your rights. That's what that contract is, protecting your rights. And let's use a judge, for instance. I want to use a judge, for instance, because they appear to have more presumed authority than anybody else. They presume this. It's a presumption. And they hide behind the constitutional avoidance doctrine to rule on this, that right there. That don't supersede your rights or that contract. Just doesn't do it. In fact, when they do that, they break the law. They've broken the law. They've relinquished their authority, wanton and will. They should be prosecuted. They should be prosecuted. What would they do to you and I? What do they do to you and I behind an infraction? They'll pull you off in front of them and try to say it's a bench trial. It's a hearing. That's a violation of the 7th Amendment. And in New Mexico, it's Article 2, Section 12. And in the Criminal Code, it's Chapter 3013. Making it a crime. All right. When they do these things, they're violating Title 18, 241, which is a crime, a federal crime, when they swore not to violate that contract. I've seen it happen a lot. I've seen people go to jail for what they want to call contempt. Contempt is not a crime. It's nowhere in the criminal code. Nowhere. It's not a crime. But they'll lock you up for it. A writ of habeas corpus can deal with that crap. A writ of habeas corpus can deal with that crap. Because that's all it is garbage. It's amazing to me that when somebody pulls you into a courtroom and you're sitting there in front of that bench and there's a black robe on the other side, they don't have that right. They got to convene a jury, even if it's a 6-man jury for an infraction. You have that right. And if it's a right, the judge doesn't have a right to violate it. Ever. They swore not to, in fact. They even signed a contract saying that they wouldn't do that. And they hide behind the constitutional avoidance doctrine to do that. That's what we need to deal with. We need to make examples of them. And a pro se litigant prosecutor can do it. Anybody that has filed their own paperwork and has completed and won their case as a pro se litigant without a member of the bar defending you from a member of the bar. You did it on your own. You're the prosecutor. Period. That's the description. That's the definition in Black's Law, Westlaw, Weck's Law. That's the definition. The preemption doctrine says that no governmental subdivision shall enact or enforce a rule, a regulation, an ordinance, a mandate, a referendum, a code, in fact, that makes any conduct covered by a code a subject of criminal penalty. A code. Let me see. Codes of judicial conduct. Does that say code on it? No. Garbage. Does that say code on it? No. Garbage. And here they are, enacting and enforcing, violating the preemption doctrine blatantly, and holding us to account for something that isn't even legal. It's not legal. Because when they do that, they relinquish their authority. They relinquish their contract. They blatantly violate that contract, hiding behind the constitutional avoidance doctrine to rule on this garbage. I've been at this for a minute, and I know a lot of y'all can tell that I've been at this for a minute. And I came out here to do this video just for this purpose, because I've been listening to these politicians talk about how, they can sit up there and legislate. And the Senate doesn't pass this because the Congress did this, or the Congress did this and the Senate did this. They added an amendment, or they took out an amendment to the legislators' application of their jurisdiction. I don't understand why more judges, like, for instance, Henry Castaneda, Judge Cano, Judge Dugan, up there wherever the hell she was hiding that illegal alien, and she got busted and she got convicted. The judge got convicted. Not even the judge is above the law. Cano, he pled out. His wife pled out. They're guilty. They admitted to their guilt. They acquiesced to their charges, as they should have. They didn't have the authority to be doing the crap that they were doing, and boom, they got caught. Those were crimes, federal crimes, mind you. I don't understand how somebody thinks that they can sit behind that bench, honor their oath with integrity, and then rule behind the Constitution doctrine, making a ruling contradictory to their oath and the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state in which they reside. Any judge that does that, all right, should be prosecuted. They committed crimes. Violating people's rights is a crime. That's why any time that if I'm not making courteous contact with a peace officer, a contract, the oath, if I'm not just making just casual, that blade of grass is green, the sky is blue, water runs downward. If I'm not just doing that, I don't have a problem with them. I really don't. Ever. I think that we need more good cops. Matt Thornton, for instance. Matt Thornton understands that walking up to somebody, man, they're just another person, just like him. They're not out there fishing for something to crap on somebody's life, because that's what they do. They crap on people's lives with zero respect to the oath that they took. Zero honor, zero integrity. And what does the chief do? Nothing. What does the sheriff do? Nothing. Sits there and tries to protect them. When somebody ought to be served a notice of liability on their own body cam. That's a public record. That body cam is a public record. Serve them notice of liability. As soon as they make contact without a warrant, without exigent circumstances, because nobody consents to abuse of power and official misconduct and deprivation of rights under the color of law and breach of oath. That intimidation, that coercion, and that threat are compounded crimes. They're compounded crimes. Compounded crimes. Okay, I'll give you for instance on a compounded crime. Alvin Bragg used a misdemeanor and made it a compounded crime without an initial crime, without a real crime to effectuate the compound. That's Alvin Bragg should be in prison, in federal prison. He should be doing, was it 34 counts? 10 years for each count? 340 years? That's just the way it is. All it takes is one pro se litigant, prosecutor, constituent, registered voter to have standing. Having standing is the number one thing that they can never argue about. Are you a registered constituent resident voter? That is standing. They can't be dismissed because there's civil liberties implications under 904. The 2511-448 abuse of office. You can look it up like that. Look it up. Is a crime. How many times have they done this? There's a pattern of practice. 18-141-41. They have now moved 141-41 to try to prevent anybody from using it as a pattern of practice, a crime, to 34. I don't care. They do that crap to revise themselves. They're not revising anything. They're trying to hide it from other people trying to use it. From you and I, pro se litigants users. That's what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time. I have been unable to get a New Mexico Constitution. I even called Hillsdale College, and they sent me an application. It wasn't even, it was a donor thing, for me to donate. Man, I get lots of people to donate to Hillsdale College just because they sent me this. You see what it says right there? I get lots of people to donate to Hillsdale College. I don't have the money to donate to Hillsdale College. I'm fighting this crap. I'm fighting this crap. It's just, it's drove me broke. $22,000 I got into this. You think that any judge has said, you know what, Mr. Garcia, you are absolutely correct. You think that just one? No. Members of the bar are going to protect members of the bar. And if you don't stick them in a legal pincer, they're going to drop a ruling on rules, not constitutional rights, to honor their oath with integrity. They're influenced by members of the bar. They're influenced by members of the judiciary. They're influenced. And those are violations of Canon 204. Every time a judge violates Canon 101, Canon 101, you can find that at Codes of Judicial Conduct, Chapter 21. Every time a judge does that, that judge is no longer a judge. He's sitting up there on that bench fraudulently. Also a crime. Hello, Eddy County. Share this stuff. Follow me along. Share me to friends. Send me over here. Send me over there. It doesn't matter. Help everybody understand what I'm doing. I'm not doing this. I'm not getting paid for this. As a matter of fact, this costs me money. And I don't have a problem with that because somewhere down the line, some Matt Thornton is going to see this. Some honorable sheriff, like Chad Bianco in California, or, we don't have any of them around here, that used to be sheriff in Arizona. He's he's a little iffy to me. I have questions. I have questions for all of them. We need to deal with this crap, Eddy County. We need to deal with it here in our county. Once we deal with it here and set the precedence here, it'll be more plausible for everybody else in other states. And that's what we need to do. Y'all drink lots of water, man. Stay busy and stay active and keep moving along. Hello, Eddy County. Share it.